By the time of the album's release, however, the Zodiac Club was a distant memory, and the album's contributors had gone their separate ways. Where Froese continued to develop Tangerine Dream, Konrad Schnitzler had joined his original collaborator, Achim Rodelius, to form the group Cluster. Originally a two-piece, they recruited Zodiac Club regular Dieter Mobius as the third member of their experimental ensemble. Again, Schnitzler's philosophy dominated. Using conventional instruments filtered through various electronic devices, they would strive to create something both unfamiliar and esoteric.
I met Achim and Conny in a Kneipe, in a pub, and they were just asking me if I want to drum with them, and I said, okay, I'm the best drummer on earth. And next day I went to their place, and they showed me the stuff. They had everything for me ready to be played. And after 2 days, I think we had our first show in a gallery. We made a 12 hours non-stop show, and 2 days later we left Berlin forever in a big yellow post truck. And we tried to make our living with the music, which was in the beginning really very hard.
We went with a post bus from Berlin in '69 and stayed on the road for about 2 years, wandering from one city to another city, knocking at museum stores and saying, here we are, we want to do something, are you aware of us? No. So you will be aware if you let us play here. And it worked. In these years it worked. We just could survive, that was all. But we had big fun, it was great experience, we met a lot of people, and we made our audience by this way, just traveling from one city to another. From the north, from Oslo down to Ljubljana. Cluster was really lucky to be able to do this way, to work this way, even though we were very marginalized.
We were not able to be a normal rock band, of course. We couldn't play guitar riffs or real bass or play real drum. So we had to invent, if we want to realize that kind of music, we had to invent a new kind of music in a way. Or because we were not able to make music, we had to do what we did, or we couldn't make music. Once we had the start of this kind of music we did, we couldn't stop anymore. We had to go on this way, and we wanted to go on this way. It was not our philosophy to not make rock. It was our philosophy to work with what we had and what we could do with our hands, and of course, to get better in doing what we are doing, and this is working automatically in a way.
Cluster with a K made in what I would call early industrial music, in a way. They were very harsh. The sounds were very metallic. They were very ringing. There was the sounds of machinery, but there was also almost like the sound of industrial equipment being heaved in and out the studio. You know, if they were sort of dragging concrete mixers in and revving them up, you could kind of understand it, kind of like Einstein's under Neubauten or something. But obviously much earlier. And they were interested in noise, I think, more than anything else. The idea of noise and how to manipulate noise. And noise would, you know, be ignored for quite a long time and, you know, has just really resurfaced over the past few years with the American noise scene, like Wolf Eyes and people like that. A whole load of bands that are involved in just creating complete noise. And then there's the Japanese noise scene with Merzbow. So they were sort of the precursors of this entire noise scene, in my opinion. When I hear cluster with a K, I hear noise, and beautiful noise, you know, noises that are interesting, that have been, you know, just to say Schaefer would or Stockhausen would have been composed and put together as a piece of music.
As the Berlin bands were beginning to branch out and the growth of experimental German music started to appear more like a movement than a set of isolated individuals and collectives, Ralf Hutter and Florian Schneider's The Organisation recorded their first and only LP, Tone Float. Behind the desk for the album was Conny Plank, a young producer and engineer who had recently completed work with Cluster on their debut Klopfzeichen, and who had set up his own company Rainbow Productions to record new German music. Tone Float was for both the organisation and for Plank an experiment, a testing ground for new ideas.
Tone Float is an album that is completely different from, say, what happened with Kraftwerk eventually, mainly because it is more percussive based. There's a lot of percussion on it. Percussion, flute, and sort of a lot of warbling in a way. If it could be seen as a success, I don't know if it can be seen as a success. I think it's more of an experimentation, really. It's a way of them sort of like finding their own feet, really, in a way. You know, finding what they could do as this band, and trying to see where they could take it. At that point, electronics played very little part in their sound. It was mostly acoustical instruments, you know what I mean? So it sounds a bit like a sort of ethnic recording in a way, believe it or not, like a German ethnic recording. But you hear it today, and it is an extraordinary sort of example of early krautrock.
Before there was Kraftwerk, there was The Organisation, the album Tone Float. Now, they're not really using synthesizers on the album. They're part of a sort of larger ensemble, as it were. But there are hints, first of all, in the very name, The Organisation, with that kind of obviously very pointed formality, indicates the the kind of rather conceptual, schematic way in which they would intend to work. And, it's obviously very antithetical to the far more informal things you get with people like Amandul. So there was that, and also I think there's this strong emphasis on there's a sort of strong sort of percussive, slightly minimal percussive line to it, which clearly would then sort of, as it were, snake through the rest of Kraftwerk's career.
The record was eventually taken by producer Conny Plank to Britain, where he managed to secure it a release through RCA. In Germany, however, the album was unavailable, and thus failed to get Hutter and Schneider any real success in their own country. Yet during 1970, the German scene significantly developed. With their commune having now divided into two separate musical groups, the more accomplished Amandul Mark II released their seminal double album Yeti. Can completed the lineup that would cement their reputation with the recruitment of singer Damo Suzuki, and Klaus Schulze joined forces with guitarist Manuel Gottsching to form Ashra Temple. Yet it was a release from an enigmatic band from Munich that pushed the musical language of the new German scene towards pure electronics. Popol Vuh were a trio fronted by the reclusive Florian Fricker, and their debut record Affenstund introduced new technologies and extraterrestrial sounds.